So life is a journey, and as men, we want to look our absolute best no matter what stage of life we're in. That's why I want to talk about today's sponsor, Coofandy, and their partnership with Joe Gibbs Racing and driver Christopher Bell. Not only does this include a primary race at Martinsville, but Coofandy has also partnered with Christopher Bell to offer Christopher Bell's picks. Christopher Bell seems to be digging a nice, casual look, as I've got to say, this textured shirt, it just looks clean, straightforward. I can see why Christopher Bell is digging this. Christopher Bell also seems to like a solid color polo shirt, which I'm sure he wears when he's going golfing or he's doing driver appearances. Then when it comes to just a casual summer night out or summer vacations, Christopher Bell is really digging the casual shirts, and just looking at some of the different styles, I can tell that Christopher Bell, anywhere he goes, he just instantly stands out. These are just some of the Christopher Bell endorsed picks on the Coofandy website, and if you want to check out these amazing offers as well as the other casual, formal, or gym wear that Coofandy has to offer, I encourage you to check out their website by clicking the link in the description. I would like to thank Coofandy for sponsoring Digital Gashouse. When Daniel Suarez got his call up to the big leagues in 2017, many thought this was the start of a fantastic Cup Series career. I mean, could you really disagree with that assessment? Daniel Suarez had a lot of hype around him, as he wasn't just the successor to Carl Edwards. He wasn't just going to get the opportunity to drive the number 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. Daniel Suarez was coming off a win in the 2016 Ford 300 that clinched him the 2016 NASCAR Xfinity Series championship. At that time, who could make the argument against Daniel Suarez being one of NASCAR's elite next-generation drivers alongside Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Ryan Blaney? Turn the clock ahead to 2025, Larson, Elliott, and Blaney are all NASCAR Cup Series champions. Daniel Suarez, on the other hand, has just 2 career wins. While Larson, Elliott, and Blaney are top 10 drivers in the series, Daniel Suarez has just 1 career points finish inside the top 10. Despite having multiple opportunities on top-tier teams, Daniel Suarez continues to be the most frustrating driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. This is a driver that has consistently performed well below his weight class, gotten outperformed by nearly every single teammate he's had, made the same idiotic mistakes that make you question why he's in the Cup Series, as well as not evolving from his flaws. So with the recent news that Daniel Suarez has been dropped by Trackhouse, I want to analyze his career and really go over why Daniel Suarez has not reached NASCAR's elite. So when I look at Daniel Suarez, I see a driver that is severely underdeveloped. In the early days of Daniel Suarez's career, he was the driver that no major team wanted. Now honestly, I would attribute this to Daniel Suarez not being financially valuable. That's a bit weird to say because yes, he did have billionaire owner Carlos Slim bankrolling his early career. However, Eris over the years slowly reduced their NASCAR involvement, and so I think a lot of race teams analyzed Daniel Suarez and saw, is the financial stuff he's bringing in really worth the labor? I would say this was half of the reason why Daniel Suarez lost his seat at Joe Gibbs Racing to Martin Truex Jr. Then at Stewart Haas Racing, Tony Stewart wanted to keep Daniel Suarez around despite being the lone SHR driver to miss the 2019 playoffs. Haas decided to go a different direction with the 41 car for 2020 and promoted Cole Custer in place of Suarez. After that, Daniel Suarez went to the Gaunt brothers, which is something that, let's just say, it happened. So the point I'm trying to make with this is that Daniel Suarez, in the eyes of Cup Series owners, was a driver that was a mid to low tier driver when it came to both financial value and labor value, which is shown with how quick Joe Gibbs and Stewart Haas Racing kicked him out the door. To this day, the only Cup Series owner that pointed to Daniel Suarez and said, yes, I think this guy is going to do great things for my team, is Justin Marks. Daniel Suarez would get, in his words, the best opportunity of his Cup Series career driving for Trackhouse Racing beginning in 2021. This opportunity with Trackhouse was the first time that we could see what Daniel Suarez was really made of in the NASCAR Cup Series. In the first 2 seasons at Trackhouse, Daniel Suarez was a driver that was looking pretty sporty. In 2021, he had some solid runs for that startup Trackhouse team, including his breakout race in the 2021 Bristol Dirt Race. He followed it up with currently his best season in the NASCAR Cup Series. Daniel Suarez in 2022 was extremely competitive and scored career best numbers in top 5s, top 10s, average finish, final points rank, and of course got that elusive first victory at the Sonoma Raceway. Considering the rise of Trackhouse, who was to say at the beginning of 2023 that Daniel Suarez could be a dark horse pick for the championship? Unfortunately, this 2022 season was not a stepping stone for success, but rather the peak of Daniel Suarez's career. In 2023, Daniel Suarez went winless, missed the playoffs, and for most of the season was a driver in the back half of the top 20. It also didn't help in the spring that while Daniel Suarez was struggling, Ross Chastain was pushing for victories and was the points leader at one point. To try to narrow the gap in between the number 1 team and the 99 team, Trackhouse would make the decision to pair up Daniel Suarez with Matt Swiderski for the 2024 season. Swiderski is an incredible engineering mastermind, not just in the NASCAR Cup Series, but at one point he helped build rockets for Elon Musk. Despite Swiderski being an incredibly smart individual, he really didn't have much of an impact on Daniel Suarez as a driver. On the tip of the iceberg, yes, Daniel Suarez had that amazing 3-wide photo finish victory at Atlanta and made the round of 12 in the NASCAR playoffs. However, when you delve more into this season, the number 99 was incredibly inconsistent. There were even races like the 2024 Spring Kansas race where Daniel Suarez legit looked like the worst driver on the track. So far, 2025 hasn't been any better. In fact, this is tracking to be Daniel Suarez's worst season in the NASCAR Cup Series since that god-awful season at Gaunt Brothers. According to Auto Racing Analytics, Daniel Suarez isn't even a driver in the top half of the NASCAR Cup Series in terms of short run speed, long run speed, restarts, restart retention, and defense on non-drafting ovals. Now, I'm not going to push all of the blame on Daniel Suarez because, to be fair, Trackhouse Racing has struggled this season with speed, especially in qualifying, which, as I'm going to go over later, is really something that is killing Daniel Suarez. However, in 2025, Daniel Suarez is a driver that is punching below his weight class. When you look at the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series standings, Daniel Suarez is barely inside the top 30, and these are cars that have been proven to be capable of winning. That gets me into my next point about Daniel Suarez, is that historically, Suarez is a driver that consistently gets outperformed by his teammates. Now sure, in the early days of his career, it's unfair to compare him to Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, and Kevin Harvick, who were arguably in their prime when Daniel Suarez was just beginning as a rookie. At JGR, Daniel Suarez was outperformed by Erik Jones. While Erik Jones from 2017 to 2018 showed progress as a driver, Daniel Suarez was completely stagnant despite being at Joe Gibbs Racing for an extra season. Now at Trackhouse, Daniel Suarez has consistently been the weak link of the organization. In the 4 seasons that Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez have been teammates, the 1 has consistently outclassed the 99. Even Shane Van Gisbergen has proven to be more valuable than Daniel Suarez in just his rookie season. Sure, he struggles on ovals, but Shane Van Gisbergen has already surpassed Daniel Suarez in career wins. Plus, when you consider Daniel Suarez's non-drafting oval stats, is he really that much of an improvement over Gisbergen? My answer is no. When you compare Ross Chastain, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Daniel Suarez, you'll see on screen that Daniel Suarez has no visible strengths as a driver. Maybe since the pit crew times are good, he's doing a better job getting in and out of his pit box, but that's about it. That is extremely disappointing for a driver that has been in the NASCAR Cup Series longer than his two teammates. It just is. Daniel Suarez, for being a 9th-year driver in the Cup Series, is extremely inconsistent. I've noticed it in the Swiderski era, where the 99 team starts out really strong and has the pace at intermediate tracks like Phoenix, as well as Las Vegas. Then they hit the short track swing, and all of a sudden Daniel Suarez and the 99 are back to square one. So this segues into honestly the two flaws that I see with Daniel Suarez that has prevented him from reaching the levels of Ross Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen. The first is that there has been the common trope that Daniel Suarez tends to melt under the pressure. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule like Atlanta 2024, still, this is not the Daniel Suarez norm. More times than not, when Daniel Suarez needs to perform, he tries to force a hole that isn't there, like at Talladega, or he completely blows the corner at Coda and ruins his and his teammates' day in the process, or even Charlotte when he ran the 19 and the 12 tied off of 4, which triggered a crash. I also want to point out Las Vegas 2025 because while Daniel Suarez got a second place finish, he just could not hold off Josh Berry in the final 11 laps of the race. Thinking about it now, if he were to win that race and lock himself into the NASCAR playoffs in week 5, his 2025 season as well as his career trajectory perhaps looks completely different. Daniel Suarez is often like a Hawaiian popsicle stick in the heat. The last 2 months have reassured this because you had Ross Chastain win the Coca-Cola 600 after starting in the back. Shane Van Gisbergen has hit his stride with 3 wins in the last 5 races. Plus, Trackhouse prospect Connor Zilisch won his first oval race at Pocono. Despite having all of the pressure in the world to perform and show that he's a NASCAR Cup Series level talent, in the last 2 months, Daniel Suarez hasn't even gotten a top 10 finish. The 99 team has been in a free fall, and whether it's Daniel Suarez's fault or not, he is the driver that is going to face the most consequences for this stretch of races, considering that he doesn't have a ride lined up for 2026. The final flaw with Daniel Suarez as a driver is honestly the fact that he is not enough of a douchebag. Look, it is no secret that Daniel Suarez is one of the nicest personalities right now in the NASCAR Cup Series. However, Daniel Suarez is also a nice guy on the track, and this is his biggest flaw. Honestly, I think the best of the best in the NASCAR Cup Series have developed a two-faced personality. Off the track, they'll be nice to other drivers and be buddies. However, when that helmet goes on and the visor gets flipped, they're a completely different person. Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano are the two greatest examples of this philosophy, and it's not really a surprise that these two are some of the best to ever race in the NASCAR Cup Series. Daniel Suarez, on the other hand, lacks that trait, and honestly, I think that is the reason why Daniel Suarez sucks at restarts. In modern NASCAR, you can't be like, oh, I'll let him go because he was nice to me off the track. This mindset is how you end up 33rd place or in a wreck. In modern NASCAR, you have to be aggressive, especially with this Gen 7 car. So, while Daniel Suarez is a good person and he has a great story behind him, this is a driver that has just not shown a lot of evolution. Honestly, Daniel Suarez losing his ride at Trackhouse is just nature taking its course. In the last 3 years, Daniel Suarez has been stagnant in the results and he has not shown any evolution as a driver. So, as a byproduct, Daniel Suarez was naturally weeded out. So when it comes to landing a NASCAR Cup Series ride for 2026, honestly, Daniel Suarez is cooked. Yes, most of the Cup seats are already taken, but at the same time, I honestly don't think that Daniel Suarez is valuable to another Cup Series team. You could argue that maybe the rebranded Rick Ware Racing could use his talents to get that program built up, but at the same time, Daniel Suarez is going to be a guy that's probably only going to improve that car by 2 to 3 positions. Maybe this is just me being a little bit too confident, but Daniel Suarez honestly is not at the moment a NASCAR Cup Series level talent. I think his best bet would be to go back down to the NASCAR Xfinity Series and have an Elliott Sadler or Harrison Burton redemption arc. There's rumors that maybe he goes to Junior Motorsports, or maybe he goes to a smaller team like Jordan Anderson Racing and punches above his weight class. Either way, Daniel Suarez is a driver that needs to rebuild his stock. What I see in Daniel Suarez is a driver that is stagnant. There are many flaws that Daniel Suarez needs to work on as a driver in order to reach that potential, that success that we saw from him early in his career. If he can do that, maybe Daniel Suarez either wins another Xfinity Series championship, or you never know, maybe he finds himself in another great opportunity in the NASCAR Cup Series.